on time. And we'll start as we always do with the Pledge of Allegiance. If you please join me as we recite our pledge. Wait, Tyler, I'm sorry. Would you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Gladly. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And if you would also please join me in reciting our four-way test of the things we think, say, and do. Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and friendships? Be a beneficial to all. Very good. Okay, I see Gary is joining us as well. Gary, welcome. Glad to have you. Just a little club business right now, and then we'll jump to the order of the day. Everybody should have received a dues invoice by now. Many have settled that, but if you haven't, if you would please take care of that. And if you haven't received it, let me know. We are assessed a small per capita from District 6200 Rotary International, both of which have been settled, but we do need to collect our dues. So again, if you haven't had the opportunity to do that or haven't received the invoice, well, let me know. I also want to let you know that there's a series of club training events going on right now. It's kind of cool at just a number of different levels. One is that we are actually, someone. There you go. But this is going on right now. I know a lot of us, or most of us, are connected mostly on coastal more than we are as Rotary. The Rotary is a formidable organization, and there's a lot of conduits into the world via Rotary. So I encourage you, if you can take the time to join these. But the one that was held this past Monday was on membership. The next one should be of interest to all of us. That's this Monday coming. It's about Rotary Foundation, and it is through Rotary Foundation, not the District 6200 that we just got our money from. The Rotary Foundation is where you get into six-figure funding programs. It's a very simple thing. It's like $25 a quarter or whatever you can feel compelled to contribute. But by being participating in Rotary Foundation, you contribute to a pool of monies that is then redistributed to the clubs. And again, some of the grants can be quite substantial. And also the ability, and when Philip joins us later in the meeting, which he will, one of the things that we have the ability to do is to pool our resources with other clubs. And it doesn't have to be the club down the street, it could be from around the world. In fact, many clubs are looking for clubs like ours to initiate projects that they can then join in. So anyway, Rotary Foundation is very important to what we're able to do. Laura, glad to have you with us today. But and again, I'll get off Foundation in just a second, but just one more thing about this. So I was talking to Nanette yesterday about some of their funding, LA Safe, millions of dollars, what have you. That's all well and good, and we're all, but what about a $10,000 project or a $50,000 project? That's not Division of Administration, but it could be us. Anyway, so if you can join in to understand what Rotary Foundation is all about, I encourage you to do it. The final session is on public relations, and that'll be on September 10th. What's really cool about this is that we are the engine that's doing this. So again, our platform that we're using today is, I got a little background noise going on. So if you would maybe mute your microphone just for a moment. But anyway, so this is going on, and you should be receiving information via email about these coming up. Also wanted to give a shout out to this. Val is going to talk about this today, but Val, why don't you just kind of bring us up to speed on the event next Wednesday?
Yes, 7 years ago, we visited Homa with what was the first resiliency forums in the country. And since then, the word resiliency has gotten to be pretty widespread. But we had done a survey with Entergy and a company called Swiss Re, which is a reinsurance company, and McKinsey and Company, which is a management company, to, by zip code, go across the Gulf South and see what the impact of sea level rise would be on built infrastructure, hospitals, ports, roads, anything that would be built. And what we learned in the study was that the economy of the regions would not be able to keep up with the loss based on sea level rise and storm events. So we had these, I think, 11 forums in the 5 states. One was in Houma. And now 7 years later, we're coming back with a forum that focuses on adaptation. And sort of resiliency is what you can do to prepare yourself to continue to go on after a sort of a damaging event, how you prepare your communities. And adaptation is what you have to do individually or as a group to continue to keep your current status as positive. So we know a lot about what will make the region resilient to sea level rise. We haven't talked a lot about individual adaptation. So this forum is going to discuss ways that we can get the private sector to look at adaptation by helping to do restoration projects, and to get individuals more involved in understanding by generations, sort of in a generational timeline rather than the normal geologic or project timeline that we hear about, but by your own families and your generations, how you can adapt over time so you don't have to disrupt your living. And it could mean many different things, but in South Louisiana and South Terrebonne Parish and Lafourche Parish, it may mean thinking about different ways to encourage your children to have a career in restoration sciences or engineering. We know there's going to be $10 billion spent in Louisiana, and there should be some of that money, and there will be, that keeps our communities whole, if not doing the same thing. So this forum is going to focus on that, how we not only, particularly, I mean, our opinion is we shouldn't retreat. We should figure out ways to adapt and have our economy adapt. So we're going to be talking about that in Thibodaux at Nichols next Wednesday.
And I assume it's open to all of us to RSVP.
Yes, you can get in touch with Lisa. As I said, I think we were talking yesterday, it's a tight room, but we can take a few more, and it's sort of in a round table kind of format where we sit around and a few, we have not formal speakers, there's no PowerPoints or anything. It's more of an open discussion on topics. And we have a few people we call discussants to answer the first question to heat up the topic, and then everybody joins in and participates.
That sounds perfect for us.
It'll be live streamed on Facebook on the America's Wetland Foundation page as well.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like a great opportunity for us to network with other like-minded persons in the community as well. So I intend to be there. Hopefully, as many of us as can, or the room will accommodate, will also be there. So,
great.
Well done. Okay, and about, you can elaborate a little bit more if you care to about that. So let me see if I hit all my high points here. Stan is not with us today, but it's his birthday today, so if you get a chance to wish him happy birthday, please do so. He did a fantastic job with our speaker at our last meeting. Let me see what else is on our agenda today. Actually, crazy though it may be, Rotary International has their national convention in Hamburg, June 19th. And I say crazy as it may be because, I mean, like, well, maybe you might think that there's no way I'm going to Hamburg, but it's really interesting how Rotary works. And one of the things that, again, if you've never really spent time among Rotarians, this is something to really think about. So check this out. So Barry Rassin, who is the Rotary International president, is from the Bahamas. Well, guess what he cares about? He cares about the fact that he's just a foot above sea level. And he also cares about the environment. And so one of his main initiatives this year is to, guess what? Plant trees. What a great segue that is. So my point is this. So here's Barry Ransom, who is this year's president of Rotary International, who will be the keynote speaker in Hamburg, Germany. And guess what? He cares about planting trees and coastal issues. I mean, we could call this guy on the phone. He could be a speaker at our tiny little meeting, when he's not flying to Hamburg. But I just share that with him. Forgive me for the dog barking. It always happens, it seems. But my point is, this is the access that we have as Rotarians. And I know we're not a huge club, but that doesn't mean anything at all. I mean, our reach and our ability to network and to draw resources into what we're trying to do is incredible through Rotary. So anyway, I just wanted to share that with you, is that we are in lockstep with what President Ransom is concerned about, and literally, and his other tenet of his vision is also to, guess what, use technology to disseminate and to engage, which is exactly what we're doing. So I mean, it's almost like we are this, the birth out of his vision, accidentally. So it's a good time to be us. I just wanted to let y'all know that. So anyway, anything else? I mean, I'll just open it up real quick. Any other topics, upcoming events, things that we need to know about from anybody? Okay. Again, Philip Zimmerman was on the call. He is probably airborne right now. He's flying to a niece's wedding in Washington, but he'll be back on the call via row 23 of United Airlines in a few minutes. So anyway, he'll be joining us again, which again is a cool testament to what we're doing. But what I wanted to do is I wanted to turn the floor over to Val primarily because a lot of great things have happened. It's a very young club. I want to let y'all know that a lot of people know about us, not only in the coastal areas, but in Rotary International. And again, we are the ones supporting that training that I just showed you on these Successful Mondays. We're getting a lot of notoriety for what we're doing as a club. And we're just getting started. We got a grant right out of the gate, even though we contribute zero to Rotary Foundation currently, although I know that will change. They just, on the basis of what we're doing, gave us $1,100 to pair up with Val's initiative and RES's initiative to plant the cypress trees. Now, I'll just say this, and then Val, I'll turn it over to you. That initiative was to be scheduled for November of this year. Val's going to update us on that information, but what I wanted to do is I wanted to just get an update on that project, because again, we have funds in hand to begin to engage the community in being part of that, when that comes to play. And today's meeting was to begin to lay the groundwork. Val's going to share some updates on that project to let us know that may be delayed a little bit. But at some point, though, you'll see this is the grant that I have up here, and you can see here are our deliverables: coordination with America's Wetland to align roles and purposes. Determine where, because Val and Lisa and his organization are excellent public relations and community engagement people. So we don't want to be redundant in the work that they do. We want to enhance and build off of what they're doing. So we want to coordinate that, not repeat any of that. And then we want to begin to engage the community, particularly locally. And there are many, many parties down here that should be very interested in being physically involved in the day. So these are, and of course, to then physically be there on that day, to be part of the project. These are the things that we'll do, and you can imagine the visibility that will bring in addition to enhancing the project. But Val, why don't you give us an update on the project and what's going on, please?
Well, let me talk about two different avenues, I think, that are primed for your participation. One is the activities that will go on around the two projects that we announced earlier this year in Pointe-aux-Chenes and on Bayou Terrebonne. One of those projects is to plant marsh grasses and bald cypress, which is contiguous to the levees that were built with tax dollars down in Pointe-aux-Chenes. And another is to create a series of terraces where the bald cypress will be tested and planted on top of the ridges rather than in the water. And we think that it will allow for the growth of these cypresses and return of the cypresses to the area with some hardier strains that are more saltwater tolerant. We're going to plant 35,000 bald cypress and thousands of either rosocane or other types of marsh grasses in there. And those were supposed to be planted in November by our earliest timeline, but just with delays in funding, the checks have just sort of basically hit the mail this week after 4 or 5 months of waiting for them to be delivered. And so the product may not be ready until February. So we're meeting with, and you will see some of the res people in Thibodaux, and we'll try to align our calendars there. But when it is time, we would want Rotary to be an active partner participant in the plantings of what we do out there. A good thing that has come already out of this, before we even plant one cypress tree, is that we have put res with Nichols State together, and they have already begun talking about sharing of students and research on these projects, and possibly reintroducing the black oak back into the wetlands. The black oak was a native species that has been all but eliminated in the Gulf Coast area. And it is, as you would imagine, a hardy wood product and also a good soil retention product. So there is a beginning of a study now to work with Nichols on repatriating the black oak into some of these areas. Also happening in the fall, but we will talk about it Wednesday in Thibodaux, is the announcement of what we have been calling the America's Wetland Restoration Registry, and we will now call it the Louisiana Coastal Exchange. And I'll give you a little background as to why that is. When we were working with a guy named Jim Blackburn in Texas, he's at Rice University, the SPEED Center it's called, and the SPEED stands for basically slowing down interruption from weather events in the Houston area. He began talking about a Texas Coastal Exchange, which would be an appeal to the private sector and private sector landowners to turn their fallow prairie lands into lands that could consume carbon, and they would measure and monitor the carbon sequestration. We were very interested in that, and we've been working with Jim for, I would say, 5 years. He's been in some of our programs. And when we talked to him about 3 weeks ago, we said, Jim, it might make sense for us with our partners that we have on the registry now, the Exchange Project, to call it the Louisiana Coastal Exchange. And then you have started the Texas Coastal Exchange. And we have an advisory committee that includes all of the Sea Grant colleges from the Gulf Coast states, plus some NGOs from the states, and we have Rotary that could be a part of this. And it may be a way to expand this over 3 or 4 years into every state and allow them their own name, the Mississippi Coastal Exchange, Alabama, Florida, Louisiana, and then Texas. And we as a foundation don't mind being the coordinator of that. As a whole, it could be the Gulf Coast Communities Coastal Exchange. So we think there's a lot of benefit in that. And what the exchange is projects that have been done over the last decade to show what the private sector has invested in it, sort of as an incentive to get them to do more. Projects that are ongoing right now, which are the 2 in Terrebonne. We had one in Lafourche Parish that the foundation has sponsored, but there are many other organizations, NGOs like Ducks Unlimited, the Nature Conservancy, CCA, who are involved in doing projects, and we want to list all of those. And then, and we have a website to show all of this, and then projects that are proposed. And these would be projects that have not been sponsored or bought yet by anyone. And we would, as a group, go out and prospect for sponsors. And they would be like the projects we do in Terrebonne, you know, where a large global corporation or a foundation may want to come in and repair some of the wetlands that support other community assets. And Homa, Terrebonne, and Lafourche, you know, somewhat the levee system that taxpayer dollars have built. But it would also be discrete projects like we're doing with the terracing project to bring back the bald cypress. We know of a lot of projects that people want to do, but they've never risen to the size or importance at the state's level or the federal level to be put into the master plan. But we call these transitional projects that we're doing that support regaining a foothold on the wetlands before these massive projects that cost billions of dollars come online. And we think that by doing many of these smaller, and when I say smaller, they could be $300 to $1 million to $2 million a shot, but in partnership with our groups and companies that operate down there, we could sort of pixelate across the region many of these projects that would hold together the wetland resources that we have right now until larger scale projects could come along. The other thing that we're talking about is when it comes to all of these projects, this notion of a generational approach to thinking about them, which is not the geologic timeline that you see 2050 and 2100, but how families can exist in the next several years or several decades and plan for their children to be here, as I was mentioning before. And along those lines, we would want to work in a public education way to inform citizens in the region of ways in which they can adapt to the change and have projects that will help them imagine that their area will be safer going forward. So I can imagine in partnership that you would have volunteer plantings that we could get folks out to do, but then we could also go and imagine these projects. Like Nichols State has a project that they want to do Barrier Island renourishment at Last Island by Whiskey Pass. Great project. It's probably $300,000 to $400,000, and we might go and find a suitable organization or company that might want to sponsor that and put their name and their sponsorship on the registry. So I imagine on the registry, which is now the exchange, that we will have 20, 30 projects up there, and we can look around and say which ones benefit, you know, which areas the most, and try to do some matchmaking to get companies like BHP, which is, you know, bought the 2 Terrebonne projects. That was sort of the way we explained it to them. They have operations there. We can get more companies to do more, add more volunteer programs for restoration, and see this sort of spread out across our area, with our first focus being that lower Terrebonne, South Terrebonne area. So those are some of the things we've been thinking about in terms of our partnership. And, you know, at some point, we might want to have a meeting with local Rotary interested parties to explain this, or invite them to a webinar where we could, once we have our ideas solid, we could make them go. Charles, I think you're muted, bud.
Yep, don't ever put me in charge. Bad idea. Yeah, it's like you read the Rotary Foundation playbook, Val. because that's, I mean, everything you're espousing is exactly what the foundation exists to do. Polio has been the primary focus for years, but the Gates Foundation, the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation, all those guys, the big hitters, are all tied to Rotary, and because they trust us, you know, to do this stuff. But again, the coastal Rotary clubs are all, you know, I don't say this in a bragging way, but I mean the membership are the A-list people in communities. These are the guys that own the, you know, the companies that do $10 million a year and whatever, and employ 50 people and whatever. So, you know, we have access to a lot of people, and I think that everybody is just kind of generically concerned, but has no specific pathway to engage, if that makes any sense.
No, it makes total sense, and I think generally the public feels that way. They are very worried and anxious, but they don't really have any, they look at these big diversion projects or the federal government or the BPR will spill money, and they can't imagine what their door into doing anything could be. And I think we could help with that. I really do. And I should have said this, but we as a foundation have taken the stand that we do not accept the notion of retreat. We know that it is difficult and that we're going to have some changes, but encouraging the idea that everyone's going to have to retreat is not positive thinking. And we just have to build economic models and a future scenario where the children can feel like they can stay at home and survive. And one of our issues is going to be insurance. The insurance companies, in some ways, are writing the future of the coast. And we have the opportunity to say, well, no, we're going to have a plan to adapt to the sea level rise by doing this. And we're going to take control. We're going to push in the state legislature, like they do in California when I live there, a fire plan. We could have a wetlands plan where you self-insure and you pay into a fund and you have insurance. When a fire comes and burns your hillside, well, we have similar things that could help. Maybe we re-engineer our homes and our communities to adapt to the change that's coming. So we'd like to sort of be, you know, Rotary, not retreat, if you will. I think that's a positive message that we deserve to send to people.
Absolutely. It sounds like a great approach, and that was kind of what I was hoping that we could chew on today was the, I mean, all of us are busy people, and all of us have plenty to do with our days, and I know sometimes you look at the calendar and go, oh my gosh, it's that other Thursday, I better get on that meeting. But I really am excited about what the Rotary can become, and it's not to consume your Thursday every other month, every other week. It's to make a meaningful difference in the communities we live in, and to bring our professional backgrounds to bear into making things happen. I mean, Rotary is all about making a difference in the communities. But Val, let me ask you this. So I know that the major landowners are involved, the Apache Oils, the Williams, I mean, those guys, because they own most of the wetlands, it seems. Well, but what about private landowners? And the case in point, so if I stare across by the large, I see millions of decimated acres of cypress forest. But those are small 30-acre parcels. And I wish Nanette was on the call with us today because she was involved in Road Home and all those programs post-Katrina. But there's a model that was built where individual small private landowners could be engaged in the restoration, in that case, of homes and businesses. But, just throwing projects into the hat, is there any discussion of how you engage individual landowners and property owners?
We've met with landowners, and I will admit that most of them have been the larger variety because they were easier to find and organize into a meeting. The landowning community, I think, is somewhat frustrated and doesn't have a roadmap to proceed. And in the Terrebonne area, I mean, every area is different, but in every area, 90 8% of the land in South Louisiana is owned privately, and all of the land contiguous to the Gulf Intercoastal Waterway, which is sort of becoming a line of demarcation, is privately owned in most cases, except for a few wildlife reserves. We could, as part of the exchange, have a way that private landowners could put up their land for restoration, and we could somehow assess what it would require. With Marganza to the Gulf and the levees that have been put down there, you have a brand new situation that is developed. The wetlands on the interior of where the levee is are able to receive fresh water and hold it for the first time without saltwater intrusion. When the floodgates to the ship channel are established, that's going to give another way to put fresh water into those wetlands, and the growth will happen. I mean, it's just, by denying the salt water. Our big worry will be then to do projects inside. They should be able to reclaim their land. But outside of those barriers, we need to extend the wetlands so that we protect the barriers, because they're not barriers that are certified Corps of Engineers barriers, and they'd be subject to failing, if you will, during a primary storm or a major storm. But I think the idea that you're talking around right now is, can we somehow have a segment of this for private landowners and provide public education to them and ask them to put their projects up on the registry for sponsorship or for self-sponsorship, and we'd help maybe with the engineering or permits or something like that.
That might be something that Rotary can do, is help come up with a sort of modular or unit-based restoration project, and I think when Charles talks about a private landowner, he means like a homeowner scale as opposed to,
right, a couple acres,
right. And so if you got the whole bayou lined up and you had something that you can do at a unit price on every participating lot, then you just raise that money and
right,
and you go for it. I think it's a great opportunity too to connect to things, one of Rotary's strength is just straight up fundraising, right? So soliciting funds and doing fundraisers and buying a project, reaching out to things like crowdfunding platforms. That could be a technology-enabled way to get the whole world to throw in a few bucks.
That's a great idea, particularly with an organization as large as Rotary. There is a project, I may have told you about this, on the land bridge on I-55 between Hammond and Laplace, I guess. So Lake Pontchartrain and Lake Maurepas, between those two, the land bridge is failing and has been compromised. So Lake Maurepas is now subject to saltwater intrusion. Same thing in Lake Salvador up in Lafourche Parish. Those projects are very necessary. They're not in the master plan. And we've done engineering on them. We know what to do. We need to go find a sponsor. We've appealed to Chevron on one of them. We've sent ExxonMobil another. But there are many places like that where that's really critical. You lose Lake Maurepas, and that's then the gateway to Baton Rouge, right? And they've had flooding issues already. So I guess what I'm saying is that should appeal to the Rotaries up and down that I-10, I-55 corridor. And they may want to be involved in protecting their future, really their economy, because of Lake Maurepas.
Yeah, I can assure you that they are interested. And again, not knowing everybody's understanding of Rotary and how many Rotary meetings you've attended, but a typical Rotary meeting might have the parish president of the school board, or
right.
The award winner of a national athletic competition. I mean, it's a very diverse experience being a Rotarian. So what we've done that's very unique is that we've focused on a singular topic, but as you're speaking to now, it touches many, 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 many communities now in a way it never did. And what distinguishes Rotarians, in my experience from many other initiatives, is the ability to make tangible, measurable, visible, physical change in the communities. I mean, we all have a servant's mindset, or we wouldn't be here. You know, we all of us agree that there's more to life than just us. That, again, that's why we kind of gathered around this topic. But Rotary is about being able to point to this project and that project and that project, you know, and make things happen. So I think we have a tremendous opportunity to rally other Rotarians who have the ability to you know, create influence and fundraise, and wherever it comes from, Rotary Foundation or individual or wherever it comes from. Mike Hayes, guess who he works for? Sasol. I mean, you know, the big petrochemical company, Sasol.
Right.
Yeah, he's an executive with Sasol. Mike Hayes, okay? So he's all about what we're doing. So I'm not saying he can call on Sasol, write a check, but those are the people we have access to.
Well, what they can do, Charles, is we can prepare, you know, a top flight presentation to go to any of these corporations. You know, we've done a fairly good job with the major oil companies over the years, but they've never bitten, like, well, BHP, I think this is a $4 million gift over 5 years. Shell has given in the 8 million, 10 million over 10 years or 12 years. But occasionally we've had in the past where they'll buy a project, you know, $2 or $3 million project. And a lot can be done then. And I'll tell you what I do know about all of them. They're all looking for the right thing to do, and they want to do it where their service territory or their employees live. And we've always approached these companies from the top, trying to meet their president, or we've gone to the Netherlands and met with the head of Shell there and all that stuff. I think coming from the grassroots and asking them to be more involved is a real positive opportunity for us. And we can prepare all those materials. It's not at all a problem, you know. We have so much of that done already. We're just about to relaunch a new website and everything. So I think this is a real opportunity, though, for us to get these companies focused on these wetlands. They've been very shy because they're afraid of being sued. And the lawsuits have happened. So I've met with every attorney for every big company you can imagine. And I tell them that, you know, don't wait this out to be sued. Let's just get something in the ground that will show some positive contributions, because you might be up against 13 billions and we're looking for like $2 million to go do a land bridge. So it's a little dicey, but I think if we have the local support, they would respond.
Okay. All right. Excellent. Gary, Laura, Tyler, any thoughts, comments from anybody? I feel like I've been dominating the conversation. Okay.
Hey, you hear me now? Yeah. PR, but then also not buying the whole project, and that could be a pretty simple way of prioritizing is how much local dollars got put in by local people voluntarily.
Yeah.
Go to a project or committed to it. You know, some way of almost like a contest element. I don't want to overcomplicate or try to hijack, but it just seems like a powerful way of making things happen.
Yeah, and local hours put in, volunteer and dollars.
Yeah.
Indeed. Well, and again, it kind of brings us full circle to the grant. So if, you know, when we're mustering, you know, when we're working with a community interface or something like that, I mean, it doesn't have to be, you know, high school class of kids or something like that. I mean, we can engage companies that have a vested interest. And then again, Val, maybe you can direct us, you know, names, you know, at a later date, the companies we may want to, you know, motivate or, you know, get them involved in the actual planning and, you know, to get whatever credits come from that. Because, I mean, it's wide open. We're, you know, our job is to be sort of an interface to the community, but the community is very broad, you know, description. there are many, many groups that we can engage, including and especially other Rotarians and other Rotary groups. Mike Collins, who's past district governor, is from Golden Meadow. Very interested in what we're doing. In fact, it was Mike that kind of guided us through the grant application process. Very interested in what we're doing. But okay, so just to kind of bring it to somewhat of a next step sort of a thing. So Val, it sounds, so first of all, thank you for the updates on your project. So the actual project, the tree planting and everything is likely to be sometime in the first quarter of 2019, something like that.
My guess is that, but I'll know more after I see these folks next week.
Okay. All right, and we'll notify the funding sources of the Rotary that those things are happening, so they're not expecting us to deliver something. Because we physically have the funds in hand, and our only obligation now is to utilize those funds based on what we agreed to do. Yeah. So they'll just sit in the bank account until we're ready. But then there's the forum next week and other things too. So you say you have some information. Maybe if it's not too much trouble to maybe I don't know, just kind of think it through. If we can begin to see some projects that might be appropriate for E-Rotary to be involved in, to engage other groups and everything. It may take a little bit more groupthink to get that done, but I think that's a great starting point.
You should put on your calendars the date November 7th. That's going to be a summit in Baton Rouge with CPRA. And that's when we're going to announce the exchange, the Louisiana Coastal Exchange with a panel. And I think it would be a good event for Rotarians to attend. And
yeah, definitely. Most definitely. Well, again, one of the training sessions is on PR. We've not really leveraged everything that we could have leveraged, and we're working on that too, in terms of getting Rotary identified with the work that we're doing. But it's all coming. All right, well, pretty exciting stuff. So, okay, anything else? Again, I'll open the floor to any other comments or discussion. So, okay, we're not hearing any. We'll do, the meeting will conclude a little bit earlier than we typically do. A couple of things. I know we're a small organization right now. We have 12 members on the books. The attendance at our meetings, varies from 7 to 10 to whatever. What I'd like to challenge everybody to do is first of all, put this on your calendar. I know we're all busy, but be here. You are missed when you're not here. And there's just so much dynamic input. Even small clubs have a great impact, and we're viewed as being one of the more innovative, progressive clubs. And trust me, we have a great reputation. We've only just begun. Also, please look at your Rolodex and consider who that we can extend an invitation to. I mean, the format just couldn't be any easier, and the cost is $200 a year. I mean, you can't beat that. So we definitely want to grow our numbers so that we have more people of influence and can input and make an impact. And it's, again, even if your participation is nominal, we still want to have people involved, because we have some pretty strong folks in our club, and we just want to expand that opportunity. And the testament to what our potential is this. I mean, if you go back and review the speaker list, think of who we've had. And why are these people showing up for a club as small as we are? It's because we're doing something that's highly unique and highly relevant at just the perfect time. So again, who we are today is not a fraction of who we will be, as the year goes forward. So again, look at your Rolodex and please extend the invitation to join. It's a very easy process to do. All right, well, having said that, I was hoping Philip would be able to jump back in. Maybe he couldn't get back on the internet. He's flying to DC. Philip had some insights on how to loop in other Rotary clubs in the process, but we'll pick that up. So we're, please, if there's room at the table, Val, try at least to Lisa Noble to see if there's room at the table for next Wednesday. Val, thanks for everything that you do.
Yeah, just RSVP if you will, because just send her an email send her your name if you want to come.
Okay, very good.
I just did that on our call, and Lisa confirmed that we're good to go.
Okay.
Yeah, I intend to be there too. All right, well, great. Well, other than that, thank you so much for being here today. I always enjoy your company. And we'll meet not this Wednesday, Thursday coming, but the week following. We'll have a speaker lined up by then. So with that, y'all have a great day.
Okay, thanks, everybody. Nice talking to you all.
Thank you. Bye.